When I say Earth is round, you're not being open-minded by saying, you know, I wonder if it could also be flat.
3, 2, 1. We're going on a rocket ship, we're going to the moon. We're going on a rocket ship, we're leaving very soon. We're going
to the moon and back. Parachuting into the Pacific, NASA's capsule Orion makes its splashdown.
NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
The plan is to get ready to go with humans to Mars late in the decade of the 2030s, and then even further beyond. And we know from what we are finding from the James Webb Space Telescope that it is a very, very large universe out there.
We're going on a rocket ship, we're going to the moon. Put on your seatbelt.
And with me on console here, probably none more important than the NASA Administrator, Bill Nelson. Senator, thank you for joining us today.
NASA's Artemis 1 Orion capsule splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Mexico. It returned from a 25-day test flight around the moon. The vehicle hit Earth's atmosphere at a mind-bending 40,000 kilometers an hour.
Is it bad to pour cold water on a hot pan? This is a great question we got from John Doe 1000. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that's a fake name, but it's a real question. I've been there before too. You're in the kitchen, you're cooking a meal, and you need your stovetop cleared. And how tempting it is to put that pan in the sink.
When it hits the atmosphere, it's going to be heating up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the parachutes have to work.
You can get quite a violent sizzle, even just from the water on the bottom of the sink. But is this actually a bad thing for your pan? Most pots and pans are made from multiple materials, whether it's layers of metal in the base, the handles, the rivets, the coating like enamel or non-stick, or something else. And the materials used in these elements all expand and contract at different rates depending on how they're heated and cooled. Usually this isn't an issue because the change happens gradually, while as the pot or pan slowly warms up in the oven or on the stove and slowly comes down to room temperature when you're done. It's when you introduce a really dramatic temperature change that problems can arise. This is called thermal shock.
Two things, big things that had to work. One was the rocket, and it worked beautifully and almost perfectly. And the other thing is the heat shield, because it's coming in hot and fast. It's coming in at 32 times the speed of sound. That's about 25,000 miles an hour. When it hits the atmosphere, it's going to be heating up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the parachutes have to work.
And it really matters how much iron is in the alloy, as pure iron melts at about 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Heavily alloyed steels, or cast irons, start to melt around 2,050 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas lightly alloyed steels and certain wrought irons melt at about 2,900 degrees Fahrenheit. Lastly, nickel alloys are valued for their high melting points and resistance to heat.
When it hits the atmosphere, it's going to be heating up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Let's put slowly around the thing.
As you might guess from the names, when a metal is cooler than its solidus temperature, it's solid. When it's hotter than the liquidus, it's completely molten and liquid.
Because it's coming in hot and fast. It's coming in at 32 times the speed of sound. That's about 25,000 miles an hour. When it hits the atmosphere, it's going to be heating up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Disc bottom pans are made by gluing the bottom of the pan to the rest of it. These are much less durable because the adhesives holding the bottom of the pan on can fail. You can tell whether your pan is a disc bottom pan or fully clad by looking for a seam around the base. If you see a seam, it's a disc bottom pan.
Let's put slowly around the thing.
This can cause breakage because the pan is essentially pulling against itself, which can result in warping, wiggly handles, cracking, shattering, chipping, and more. I actually cracked the interior of my own Dutch oven by pulling it out of the oven and putting it right in the sink. There was water on the bottom of the sink, and that was the culprit.
A vision for the future that captures the DNA of particularly Americans, although we do this as an international venture.
Depending on your project, melting point can play a key role in the material you choose. Anything from forging to high temperature applications can drastically change your decision.
I think you have to be hesitant to celebrate and throw confetti a little bit too early, but it certainly is an important achievement, is it not?
It's historic because
We're flying on a rocket ship, zoom, zoom, zoom. We're flying on a rocket ship, we're flying to the moon.
Well, again, I can just go back in time to the 60s, and they said, a different version of the same thing. Why are we doing this when fill in the blank?
we always have a frontier, and that frontier is now to continue exploring the heavens.
It's a spiritual battle, a warfare between good and evil.
Take care, fisherman in a box.
Yeah.